Hello. Would like to start. So, good morning, everyone. So, welcome to day 2 of the ENISA conference. Welcome back to Athens, to those who are today in the room, and Carlos Itepisos Tina. Did I say okay? Thank you very much. So, I will be your very own maître de cérémonie, or Madame Loyal, as my colleague Chloe likes to say, for today. So, for those who do not know me, my name is Corina Pascu. I joined ENISA 1 year and 3 months ago, barely, something. Before that, I'm working with my colleagues in the Market Certification and Standardization Unit, specifically on the drafting of the EU5G certification scheme, a beast, a very important topic, but it is a very difficult one. And I also work in a cross-unit team, a horizontal team for the research and innovation. And, well, why? Because before joining ENISA, I worked for many years in research and innovation as a researcher, as a policy analyst, and also policy support for the European policies. Part of the Joint Research Center in Seville site, working on socio-economic implications of ICTs, information communication technologies, but also in the Commission on the policy-making side for the European Open Science Policies and European Open Science Policy Cloud. So those, as you know, open science, it's now integral part of the Horizon Europe. So if anybody would like to just know a bit how this would be implemented, what would be the requirement for the proposals, just I'm at your service, so just come forward and I'll be here or by email. So to start with the day, just a little bit of housekeeping. So as my colleagues had asked me, the conference is recorded, so it would be, the recording would be made available on the ENISA website. For those at home, online, connected online, they will have, and they have access to the online platform, Let's Get Digital, it's called, and we will have a question and answer session at the end of the day. So for people on site, just enjoy mingle in the coffee break. So we will have one coffee break, half an hour, at about 10:30 CET time, and then an operational break before the question and answer session, so that we can collect the answers and distribute them to the moderators, and prepare for the last session. So just to give you a little bit of a feeling of the agenda of today. So I will start with a personal reflection, so I would add my personal touch to that. So yesterday we heard about utopias, and particularly about cybersecurity utopia, enjoying a little bit of the Greek environment. But as, let's say, academic in mind and spirit, and at heart a researcher, I would say, and I also take, the takes of Victor Hugo. There is nothing like a dream to create the future. And also Oscar Wilde. The progress is the realization of utopias. So I would like to take this positive and progressive vision with respect to utopias. So the key words here are a dream. So yes, we do have a dream. Europe has a dream to make Europe cyber secure. And we do have a vision how to go about this dream. And this vision goes about making secure the ICT products. So we have the cloud common criteria scheme. We have the cloud services, and we have markets. We do something about the markets. So Today we're going to have two panels. So first of all, it will be the ENISA Day. So we will hear some things about each of these schemes and also how we go about ensuring a consistent approach between them. What would be because there are many challenges, so we need to take these challenges into consideration and to solve the different problematics. And Philippe Blo would be the moderator just next coming on stage with his guest. Then we will hear after that about the market. Market is important to make informed decisions related to cybersecurity. And our colleague Luis Marinos will come next to the stage with his guest as well. And a sneak peek into the future certification. So what we have to consider, what is going to happen next. So this will be our, let's say, not really looking into the crystal ball, because there is no crystal ball here, but just exchanging some view about the future of the cybersecurity. And Dr. Sharkov will come to the stage with his guest. And after that, we'll have a technical break. And I will be your humble moderator for the last session of the question and answer. So without further ado, I will invite Philippe to the stage. Thank you very much.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. You want me to start now? No? Okay. Love me tender. No? Oh, yeah. So, let's go back to the session. Good morning, everyone. My name is Philippe Blo. I'm head of sector certification at ENISA. And we are going to talk about our certification projects and schemes development with some of the colleagues. And Corina was mentioning Utopia Dreams, and I will mention that at ENISA we have really a dream team when it comes to doing certification. So I will invite among these dream teams Renate, please, Vasso, and Eric to join me on the stage. And I will try not to fall. I know it's dangerous. Okay, so first I would like you to introduce yourself, and by the way, introduce also your motivation when joining ENISA. So please, Vassal.
Thanks. He looks at me and he smiles. You know why? Because it's the beast that Corina mentioned. Okay, I'm a telco engineer. I was an electrical engineer and was working for regulatory authorities and BEREC for the last 20 years. So as a middle-age crisis, I realized I wanted to start something new, and surprisingly, I wanted to start certification. So that's why I tried it. And I really got bored on doing the things I knew so well. So now I do things I don't know well. And it's quite a challenge, but it's something I really like because your mind wakes up again. And it's interesting to see that. So that's the truth. Yeah. Renate?
I hope everybody can hear you well. Okay, my name is Renate Verheijen. I joined ENISA 2 years ago. I came from the public, semi-public sector, to be honest, because the company that I worked for previously protected the state secrets of the Netherlands, and that is of course a little bit of a different construction. In that job I actually was involved in information protection, not only from the legal side but also from nation protection, not only from the legal side but. And doing so, I realized that actually how cool it would be to do this for not just one company or one member state, but do it for 27 member states, and to do that on a level that that you can really make a difference in not only doing your own work very well and for your organization, but to do this in a context where you can contribute to several countries who all are in a different stage of development, who all have their different interests. So that basically means that you enter into a field where you have to combine and work together with a lot of parties. And that is something that, I think that if you work at ENISA, is a unique opportunity. You learn from many angles that there are interests. You learn to combine these interests and to together also develop common goals. And that is, I think, something to be very happy with. That we can, within the EU, define these common goals despite the different interests that, of course, there are. So, yeah. Great to work at ENISA.
Merci Renate. Eric?
Hello, so my name is Eric Vetillard, and I'm the chair of the ad hoc working group working on cloud services. So my background, if I go backwards, is on certification, IoT, smart cards, and then more formal and the theory of programming languages. So my reason to join ENISA is that maybe also some kind of middle-age crisis, made it slightly different. I think it was time to go for a little bit more closer to public service. And after 30 years in the various kinds of private sector, and I also thought that this idea of designing certification scheme would sound quite cozy, so without too many challenges. And then they gave me cloud. If you heard my experience, okay, well, I never did any IT in my life, so okay, that was interesting. So the learning curve is still here. I'm still very happy to be where I am. I haven't been disappointed at all. I mean, I like the idea of working maybe more for the for the citizens and for the member states than for some anonymous shareholder or whatever. So yes, I think this is definitely exciting, maybe even more than I expected when I applied, for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Nobody mentioned Greece. That's surprising, but okay, forget about it. You're already there, so okay. After this presentation of the different panelists, I would like to start the discussion on this ongoing development of scheme with first a presentation by Renate on the life cycle of certification scheme. So we have prepared a slide for that. If you could present that so that everyone becomes a little bit more aware about the different steps of creation of a scheme, that will help for the next session.
Yeah, the reason to dive a little bit more and to guide you into development of the scheme is of course also related to the fact that, that not only during this conference but also in the certification week that we organized and also out in a broader community, a lot of questions pop up related to, okay, but how does this actually work, developing a scheme, and where do you stand at this point? And of course, people are very curious to know how this ecosystem is built. Also, what came out of this week is that, of course, there is a huge interest for a lot of stakeholders to get involved as much as possible in this development process. And even though I will guide you through this development cycle, where you can already see that there are a lot of stakeholders involved, of course, when it comes to a close ending of a scheme and more people learn about this, the more people think, oh, I should have joined, and why didn't you communicate this more, and is this process really transparent? And therefore we thought it's very good to show you how this process works, and that of course this process is actually a continuous process, because developing a scheme is not a one-time off thing. It is of course a scheme that you set into the market in an initial version. But then, of course, we still get the maintenance and the review of schemes, because these setting out certifications also means that these certifications need to more or less go with the evolvement of the cybersecurity ecosystem and the level playing field. So that means that the cycle that you now see on the slide is actually more or less a continuous cycle, meaning also that in a continuous way, stakeholders are involved. So that is one of the things that we hope to make clear in this slide. So when you go down to the left side, where you can see the European Commission in the vertical first block, like yesterday, Agnieszka in the keynote already explained, there is a union rolling work program, and originally the Cybersecurity Act explains that this union rolling work program is more or less a program where future areas of possible certification are identified. This union rolling work program is designed or developed together with the European Cybersecurity Certification Stakeholder Group. Now, this stakeholder group is a large group of almost 50 members that is coming from industry, from different sectors, from research institutes, from, of course, conformity assessment bodies, interest groups, consumer groups. So a lot of different groups are involved in this SCCG, which is the abbreviation of the stakeholder group, are involved, and together with this group, the Union Rolling Work Program in draft version was developed, and they also provide an opinion on this Union Rolling Work Program. The second step is that also member states have a close look at the draft program to see, okay, are areas of future certification, is that covered well? Are the interests, well, of course, reflected in this program from member state perspective? And then both opinions are sent to the Commission to finalize the Union Rolling Work Program. And like Aga yesterday explained in her keynote, this is about, maybe to be presented in autumn. So we are all very curious, waiting to see how this Union Rolling Work Program would look like in detail. Besides this Union Rolling Work Program, of course, we currently now are already busy developing schemes, and those schemes are actually initiated by a separate individual request made by the Commission, because besides the Union Rolling Work Program, the Cybersecurity Act also allows the Commission and in a later stage maybe also the ECCG, to send a request for development of a scheme to ENISA. And for the schemes of EUCC, the cloud scheme and the 5G scheme, these were also individual requests sent to ENISA. So that already explains that there are more opportunities and initiatives that could be developed to develop this scheme. Okay, once we have a request received, we go a little bit up, then you go to the gray block in the vertical where you can see ENISA. There we start first to analyze, of course, the request and to see, okay, what is exactly the scope of the request, what should the certification cover? And based upon that, of course, it's very important to see, okay, if we want to set security requirements, then a risk assessment is, of course, essential. Based on the scope, we need to see what kind of risks are there that need to be covered in order to develop the scheme. And that is why the risk assessment is, of course, developed. And also there, with an ad hoc working group, there is stakeholder involvement in defining and setting up this risk assessment. After this risk assessment has been performed, then of course, in the meantime, an ad hoc working group, together with ENISA, is working on a draft candidate scheme. That draft candidate scheme is developed, of course, in several phases, and at some point it reaches a first draft that has enough maturity to allow a public consultation. And this public consultation means that ENISA is publishing the first draft of the scheme and will reach out to the whole public to collect as much as information possible and feedback possible to see, okay, how would this scheme be received in the market? What kind of interest do the different actors that will take up the scheme think about this? And based upon that feedback, of course, ENISA and the ad hoc working group will go back to their drawing table and again see, okay, what kind of feedback can we take into account when developing the scheme into a mature phase. And once we have that mature phase, then the draft candidate scheme, based upon also close collaboration with the ECCG and several meetings with them to see is the development of the scheme still also in line with the interest of the member states, then in a more mature stage, the scheme will be sent to the Commission. And then it's up to the Commission, of course, to see how this works. The ECCG will then provide a formal opinion on how does this draft look like, is it okay? And then within some adaptations that take place upon this opinion, the draft implementing act will be developed, and then of course that goes into a specific voting procedure by the member states. And then we have the green checkbox that indeed we do have a scheme alive.
Thanks a lot, Renat, for this presentation of this life cycle. I would add that in addition to these developments, there are more at ENISA side, for example, associated to the development of the scheme that become a legal act. There is also development of guidance, supporting documents and guidance. There are some pilots, and then I would like to hear from each one of you where we stand currently with our 3 schemes. So, Renate, please, we will do in the order of maturity of the schemes. So we'll start with EUCC. Renate, can you explain where we stand currently?
Yes. Currently with the EUCC scheme, ENISA is working closely together with the Commission to draft this implementing act. Of course, once the scheme is developed, we have a quite extensive documentation in describing all the elements that a scheme should be consisting of. So these documents usually contain quite a lot of information, and of course also the necessary detailed information to also effectively operate the scheme. Translating, of course, the whole entire scheme with all its details and all its cybersecurity requirements into a legal act, is something that is quite a challenge.
And we'll develop the challenge just afterwards.
Yes. But this implementing act, of course, is consisting of several documents. So I really would like to share a little bit with you with how this looks like. An implementing act has a main body where the articles and the main procedures are described. Then there are recitals that more or less explain the articles and provide more background on the articles. And then, like Philip already indicated a little bit, there are supporting documents that more or less have an harmonized character. And then we also have specific guidance that will be developed for the actors that, of course, will uptake the scheme. So therefore, breaking down the scheme that has been written into all these different documents is currently the process where EUCC is standing.
Yeah, exactly the point, yeah. Eric, where do we stand currently with the EUCS?
So on the side of EUCS, we're slightly less advanced. We are right now to the point where we have a draft candidate scheme. It looks kind of orange in that case, and that we are about to submit that scheme to the ECCG to get their formal opinion, and at the same time, also to get the final, I would say, commenting round from the ad hoc working group. So after, when we'll be done with that, I think I will take all of these comments, feedback, and opinion, and hopefully deliver the final candidate scheme to the Commission. And in parallel, we're also working on, I would say, byproducts of the scheme, which is there are 2 documents that are currently in discussion in CENSE-NLX JTC 13 in working group 2 and 3, regarding respectively the requirements that we put on cloud services at the different levels, and also the assessment methodology, or more precisely the requirements for the accreditation of CABs. So just for the information, access to these discussions in CENSE-NLX is open to anybody who knows the process, is how to go to a national standardization organization and then get into there, and you're all welcome to contribute to these discussions. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. Vaso, on 5G.
Thanks. We're at the very beginning of that. So we're actually 5G by nature is quite a complicated project. So we had 3 work streams on trying to structure how the advice would look like for drafting the scheme. These 3 work streams are referring to the translation of the NESAs, a GSMA structure that is working, is functional, GSMA SAS SM platforms of subscription, and EUICC. And there's the 3rd work stream that is also doing the gap analysis and is working on trying to consolidate the information that comes from the translation of the schemes together. The challenge on the 5G is that we have to align existing industrial schemes that are quite a bunch, and also try to dimension the certification scheme that we want to proceed to on 5G. But we're really at the beginning there. I'm sorry for that. Yeah.
Well, there's no need to be sorry. So when talking about challenges, it's exactly one of the questions I'm having on the different schemes. So Vaso, we will go in the reverse order. Vaso, so we are more or less here at the, so in the ENISA block of sectoral risk assessment. So we have another working group that has been in place since December last year. We had numerous sessions of different work streams. We had a meeting of the 5G ad hoc working group this week. Can you highlight one of the biggest challenge so we are having with this scheme, and how you think we may solve it? So, okay,
I'm not sure I will manage to highlight only one, so I'll try. The thing is that by definition, 5G is as Corina mentioned, we call it the beast. Okay, so it's a huge ecosystem of interconnected processes and products. So apart from certifying specific products that are part of this ecosystem and services, we have to assess how they interrelate. So one challenge is like to dimension the problem really, what we want to certify on 5G. This is quite a big discussion we have within each of the work streams, but also I believe it will be a major challenge for work stream 4, like phase 2, the drafting of the scheme itself. And we're very happy and very lucky to have a lot of stakeholders involved that really know the telecommunications industry and the way it works. So they pinpoint a lot of the difficult parts there. The other difficult part is the alignment to existing industrial schemes that are working. So in the request, we had an explicit reference to translate as is GSMA NESAs, GSMA SAS, SM, NDP, and also work on the EU ICC and reuse the existing schemes that are going to be there. So we have common criteria hopefully coming out. The cloud scheme is like progressing. The idea is to be able to compose all of that in something that is achievable and easy. Yeah, well, I would keep the last word like achievable and easy as a challenge for that. I hope we don't lose them now.
Thanks, Vaso. Eric, on EUCS, so if I can compare things a bit, so you've seen the EUCC version 111 that was published last year, 300 and so pages, so it was a summer novel. The EUCS around the same size. But along these 300 pages, what were the most difficult to write, or what were your challenges?
So the challenges, when we started working on the scheme, there was already a pre-study that had been done, the CSP cert, with the commission, with a lot of experts. And I got one from the very beginning. Well, you know, on the requirements, there are really different views. If you compare, for instance, the existing schemes and assessment, it's even worse. We have two communities fighting to death. Okay, thank you. So that's a nice thing. So it's true that our first meetings were entertaining, but as we kept going, we managed to find a good position. So now I think we feel confident enough to have actually, outsourced these documents with these very challenging tasks, to Sensenelec. So we feel confident that the fights won't start again. Otherwise, I would not have done that. So that we found a solution that is stable. But I think that the key, so that was supposed to be the big challenge. I think the big challenge came a little bit later, kind of as a surprise, when we had to get all the discussion on the sovereignty, on the independence from non-EU laws, because, well, suddenly there was another issue that was not purely technical, so then it becomes a little bit more difficult. It's in the middle of the technical work. So in this particular thing, I think that it's definitely another success, in particular for the ad hoc working group, of having the ability to focus on the technical aspects, while also, of course, on the side, whatever, dealing with the political issues of it. But this is something where we managed as much as we were able to. And now the next step is that we'll clearly explain what choices are in front of the member states, and they will have to make that choices at that point. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. So if I understand clearly, the one of the challenges was to develop sound criteria related to this independence to non-EU law, and we've got them, and the way that we will implement them, that will be the choice of the member states, right? Okay. Renate, what are for you the main challenge associated with the EUCC, be it on the development of the scheme or its transformation into EU law?
Yeah, I will answer this question from a little bit different angle. That's also related to the fact, of course, that the EUCC scheme is in now a more advanced stage. And at this stage, of course, we realize that we do not only need to focus on the development of the scheme as such, but of course a very important aspect is making the schemes fly. Because developing the scheme is one thing, but making it to a scheme that is attractive for the market, that is attractive for the conformity assessment bodies to use. It is reflecting the interest of the member states, and of course it is serving the industry, because in the end we build this scheme actually together. So making the scheme fly is a joint challenge that we face. So I already explained a little bit in the development of the scheme that stakeholders are involved, but I think when we come to the aspect that, of course, when a scheme is in an advanced stage like EUCC, the way to market the scheme, to inform everybody that this scheme is about to be translated into EU law, but also, of course, to be implemented and operated, is extremely important. And I think that is a challenge that we all face, because the scheme will not only fly because ENISA, with its ad hoc working groups, together with the member state and the stakeholders, develop something, but making it operating and making it successful and serving also really the cybersecurity ecosystem, that is of course a challenge we all face. And I think that collaboration, also open feedback, building together these blocks to bring it to the market is extremely important.
Okay, and to support this attractivity of the scheme, so we had some initiatives during the development of the scheme, such as pilots, as to check the applicability of the scheme itself and related guidance. We've seen the multiple awareness campaigns that also target the caps. We at ENISA we feel that the caps are the ones that will be in the best position to promote the schemes. In addition to of course the more global campaign we may have on advertising, on certification, and that's an element we want to highlight, that our big contributors to the success are the CAPs.
Yes, and in addition to that, of course, also the role of the member states play an important role. NCCAs within their territory also want to, of course, to contribute to bringing the scheme to the market, to also make sure that they are there to supervise, not only to supervise and monitor, but also to guide the, of course, the actors in their territory to use the scheme in a way that it really contributes to cybersecurity. And then, of course, also, like Philip described, the CAPs, so the certification bodies and the testing laboratories, also, of course, have a huge interest in, once they are accredited and authorized, they also want, of course, to bring their service to the market. So we have several layers, actually, that all can contribute to the marketing of the scheme.
Okay, thanks everyone, and I will give the floor back to Corinna, and I thank you all for your information details on the different status of the schemes and some challenges. And I wanted to highlight that Corinna not only is driving or participating to the 5G scheme, is doing also activities in research, and also she's in charge of the KPIs associated to the success or measurement of potential success of our certification activities. So Corinna, back to you, and thanks to the colleagues.
Thank you, Philippe. So the next panel, it's as I said, it's about the market. So market data is important for cybersecurity choices, and we're talking here about how products are going to be launched and what about the policy initiatives. And also it's a bit about how research and innovation funding would contribute to that. And yesterday we have heard quite a lot about what is in the store in the Horizon Europe course, and as Andrea put it yesterday, all the faces just lighten up on the news that is going to be something, money, coming up from Horizon Europe for that. And yes, indeed. So I would like to give the floor as a continuation to Luis Marinos. He is our lead cybersecurity expert for the market. Luis, please go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, how are you? Hey, how are you? How are you doing? I'm very happy to be here. You don't know yet, but we are privileged to have 3 colleagues in the panel speaking about market incentives. And I would like to stick to the word money that you just said, okay? Which is a good example of incentives. But as we know, money is not everything in life, so there are probably other things that I hope we will be able to highlight in our panel. So I would like to gain some time. I'm Luis and I work for ENISA, as said, in the area of market analysis. And we have today 3 colleagues. Rasma, please come with us. Ansgar. And there is somebody online, my good friend and colleague Alyosa. I would like to tell you also the following. We are also very lucky, besides the people in this room, and fully say impacted by COVID. We have another 200 fellows outside who are following this discussion. Unfortunately, the questions are not going to be answered live, but at the very end of this event today, we have a special session where we are going to discuss about the questions posed, and I'm condemned to answer by myself, so to enjoy the loneliness of being exposed to difficult questions. I will give now the floor to my colleagues to introduce themselves. We see also Alyosa. Hi, Alyosa. Either you are muted or Alyosa or our...
Sorry, I apologize.
Okay, now it
Hi, good morning.
Hi. Okay, I will start with you guys.
Okay, hello everyone. I hope you can hear me well. So thank you very much for inviting me to be participate here in this panel. So my name is Rasma Arabi. I work for ATSEC Information Security. It's an international company. We have multiple offices, but the office that I'm in charge of, and I also run the lab there, is the Swedish office. So I have been with the company now 14 years. I have not done anything else than certifications or evaluations, to be honest. And I have quite a good experience also from multiple schemes. So of course, first of all, the Swedish common criteria scheme, then also the German scheme, the Italian scheme, and to some extent the US, the scheme that is run by NIAP. And in the recent years, I also got involved in the GSMA NASA's work. So here we started performing both the GSMA NASA's audit and SCAS testing. And also with that experience, I got invited to the EU 5G work, where I'm working together with Vaso and other reporters and the members in the Workstream 1, where we are making the as-is translation of the GSMA NASA's to the certification scheme. So yes. Please.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here. My name is Ansgar Tesma from Germany. I work for SRC, Security Research and Consulting Company. We are an evaluation and audit company. And I myself, I used to work as a common criteria evaluator in SRC's ITSEF. After that, I used to work as an auditor in PCI, in a PCI scheme. I worked as a ISO 27K auditor and as an auditor within the German national security law scheme. And finally, as an auditor and evaluator in the German healthcare system as a product evaluator and security evaluator. So I've done audits and evaluations in several different schemes. But now, since the beginning of the year, I'm responsible in our company for sales and business development.
There is something positive to report about this. Your life will change, because if the ENISA schemes are coming, then you don't need multiples. One, they're going to be only. Ayosa, tell us something.
Hello, good morning.
Yourself.
Yes, first of all, thank you for invitation, Luis, and thanks everybody also in the room for being there and listening to this panel. So my name is Ariel Shapach. I work in Athens. Athens is very big IT company, IT service company. We do everything. We are 120,000 people all over the world. And my role, I'm working in research and innovation department already for 20 years and doing with different roles in these 20 plus years. I'm not focused exclusively on certification, or I'm not. I would not even say that I'm expert on certification, but I will focus more on market, on cybersecurity market, because as I said, I've been working on the topic already for more than 20 years, and I think I know quite good how the market works in cybersecurity area. In certification, I was involved in a project. It was 2012. It was European Commission project called Cyrus. Was about cloud security certification. It was 2012, and it was the acronym of Cloud Security Certification and Standardization. Not only in Europe, we had also Japanese and Asian partners. So in that particular area, I do have quite a lot of insight. And as I said, I'm going, or I will try to bring point of view both from the general market perspective, how the cybersecurity market behaves, what are the mechanisms, what are incentives on the market, what are intervention strategies, what are specificities of this market, but also from a position of a large system integrator. So I hope it will be an interesting panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alyosha. All right, so I will drop some questions for you guys to answer. This is just a small window, so to say, where I will crawl inside and open up a discussion. So I hope we will be able to find out some more juicy items while the discussion is evolving. So maybe we start with you, Alyosha, because of your knowledge on market. So the first question will be, let me read it because I have not learned them by heart. So certification is actually, among other things, a quality seal, mainly, especially for the security, cybersecurity stuff. So what do you believe are main reasons for market players to adopt such a quality seal? Usually, some pessimistic people say that human life quality is decreasing over the years. So what makes the market believing that we need a high quality seal-like certification scheme, and why this kind of things emerge slowly? What is your opinion about it?
Yes. Okay. So I do agree. I would extend it is whether we talk about certification, third-party certification, or label or seal. It's always a matter of trust. So we have a lot of these concepts invented to deal with trust, which is a mystery for many of how the trust works, especially in digital, in cyberspace. Trust is something that is normally built over time, and big companies like us, for example, we have in managed operations, we have customers that are with us more than 30, 40 years. This is a long-term relationship based on trust, and they are not really likely to change provider only because of seal or because of the some indicator of trust. So but trust is also something that can be destroyed very easily. So it is, as I said, it is certification is a kind of approval that there is a trust. So when we talk about motivations and reasons for certification efforts, we have to distinguish between voluntary and mandatory certification, of course. Voluntary is mainly done by enterprises that want also to learn through the process. So the process is more important, as since you are in Greece, you know this poem that Ithaca has given you the nice journey. So some people do certification because of the journey, and not because of not only because of the end results, which is the seal or which is the certification itself, which is displayed for customers and can produce some competitive advantage. I think these are minority of the organization that do this on basis to learn and to improve their processes, to improve the certification. Most of the companies, I think, do it because it's either mandatory or because they think it will increase their competitive advantage. It will increase trust and reputation, etc. So I think you mentioned one thing, which is equality, and which is also, I think, important to discuss in the panel. There is also such a things like a triple constraint in some areas, which is a cost, quality, and time. You cannot have all three of them. So you have, if you want to decrease cost, which is very important in certification. We will later come back to this issue, which is a cost of certification. If you want to decrease cost, you have to decrease quality or increase time. You cannot manage the three things. There is a kind of triple constraint here. Okay, I will leave it to my colleagues to also to give their opinion.
Thank you, Alyosha. Rasma?
Yes, I would like to add, it's really what you were saying. So we have the mandatory schemes, we have the voluntary schemes. So majority schemes are actually voluntary. But I would say that there are more challenges for the voluntary schemes because they could not be selected. So basically the vendors are choosing to use them, and because they are not mandatory. So that states more requirements on the schemes as well. So as presented during the previous panel, so the scheme need to be attractive. So that they need to be attractive, they need to meet the business requirements, they need to meet the market requirements. They also need to state the requirements on the correct level. So that was also a little bit discussed last time. So basically for the correct market, you have to have the right level of the expectations of what kind of level of security would be achieved. So I think that is really important. For the mandatory schemes, of course, that is the other thing. So it's just compliance. issue. And from what I can say, we have done a lot of certifications, and yes, majority of them are because the customers are meeting their end customer requirements. So this is basically either they are the procurement requirements, or as also stated just now, they are meeting they are trying to match what their competitors have. So very often when we have discussions with new customers and they don't know really, for example, the level of certifications that they want to achieve, then normally we would advise them, yes, what do your competitors have? And then usually what they want to do is they want to achieve the same level, so definitely not the lower level. And if it is possible, they would like to add something else just to prove that they are just a little bit better than their competitors.
Okay. My question will be, assume, Alyosha, we, after 10 years from now, we make a startup and develop a product, okay, in the area of risk assessment, for example, right? So what would be the reason to willing to, so to say, to increase quality if we don't have money? On the other hand, if there is a very big company, you know, dominating a market with a lot of money, are they more likely to go for such a high quality product to nominate the market? So, and my question is, what is the balance between these two things? So what are, you said something about requirements and things, yes, sure. But what is, so to say, the basis, or do we need to build up this process in a democratic way, or it is, so to say, first come, first, so the one who has money for this cruising around, as you said before, so this journey, and can pay it, is the winner? Or, I mean, yes, this is not very clear to me what, before Ansgar says something, which I'm sure he can say something about what I'm asking.
I think your question, Luis, can be reformulated in a way that is a certification which is similar to compliance or to other cost-related issues, which are not which is not strictly related to product development. So the question could be reformulated in a way: it is impeding innovation and startups and SMEs, and giving you know, unfair advantage to large companies that have budget for this extra not technical activities. So it is then under this there is a second sub question, which is how the cost of certification schemes can be affordable for small business, especially for startups and you know, these new products, and how it can be coexist with innovation and innovative products and this. So basically, I think yesterday we also heard there are two approaches to deal with this. One is a kind of collective approach, where the organizations such as chambers of commerce or others can help and intervene in these umbrella organizations. Another one, which is yesterday it was said in the last session, it is the only approach, is a progressive approach. So based on the breaking certification process in successive iterative levels, and it can be maybe done not all at once. So the many ideas come into my mind from vouchers, but one of the particular ideas that I would like to bring forward is especially now that we are coming with European Cybersecurity Competence Center, is the idea of ecosystem. Ecosystem approach was also discussed yesterday. And what I mean by this ecosystem approach is that we will have a network of hubs. It was discussed, for example, also by these pilot projects like Concordia and Cybersec for Europe, where these hubs have RTD labs, research and development labs, that can maybe play around with testing, with validation of products by SMEs or startups that do not have money. They can do it for free. I mean, the research can learn things, and in this ecosystem approach, different stakeholders could help each other without need to pay for some parts of it.
Okay, thank you, Alyosha. Let's hear the opinion of our colleague Ansgar.
Yes, there are many side effects of certification which companies may use. So we have heard a lot of very special sensitive markets like the banking sector, the insurance sector, or critical operators. And there are many due diligence requirements to those companies or those stakeholders. And in those markets, certification may help in many ways. So first of all, certification or to achieve certification by yourself is a very easy provement for your efforts in information security. For example, the 27K certification of your own company. Another way would be, for example, to use certified products. This helps to prove that your supply chain is more or less secure. So you have, it's easy provable, it's a low-hanging fruit. So certification is some sort, or may be used at some sort of outsourcing of information security. So this is a very important use for some companies. And the other, as I said before, it's so easy provable. So today top management is yearly asked, what do you do to enforce information security? And it's easy to show, okay, last year we did that certification to prove that we did progress in information security and have a very mature level of information security.
Okay, which brings us to the kind of the next question. So it seems to me that if we speak about certification and given a certain maturity that is achieved over these years through other activities which go towards this direction, so we are not starting from scratch, so to say, is the question what kind of characteristics do we need? I mean, previously Renate said something about that. What are the characteristics? How can we support, not impose, I would say initially support, all these people around who have maybe a ISO 27000 certificate? A parenthesis I would like to make here, ISO 27000 emerged during the last 15 years. So are we going to need another 15 years that we reach a certain level of quality, so to say, that can be considered as equal or equal to a certificate? And what are the characteristics of these schemes and processes and frameworks that we all develop, so that we take the people from the point they are and put them forward? Rasma.
Okay, thank you. Very good question. So I think actually what I would raise actually 3 points. So I think international recognition, that is one thing really that is important. The second is the recognition of the certificates and the validity of the certificate. So basically how long my certificate is valid. And the last one is also that we heard also during this conference that now there are a lot of different standards, a lot of different certifications. So we need to have these horizontal schemes. We need to try to do some kind of a composition of the certification in order to not ask the vendors to do multiple certifications with in multiple countries with multiple auditors all the time and check more or less similar requirements. So I think that is really important. But when it comes, for example, to certificate, to validity of the certificate, that is also a very interesting question. So sometimes we struggle through a certification. It's a last 6 months or 1 year. And then when the certificate is issued, then we receive a question from the vendor. Now we have a new version. What does that mean to the certificate? Does it mean that everything that we have done during the last 1 year or 6 months, does that mean that it is no longer valid? So I think that it is also important very much to include this, the development and life cycle of the product development included in the certifications to be able to claim that the certificates that are issued that are still valid.
Thank you.
Yes, there's also another impact. We have heard that yesterday. The static evaluation versus some sort of continuous evaluation that inflicts with the validity of certificates also. So I think the approach of performing evaluation only after the development is fully completed is not applicable for rapidly developing markets or market segments. So there were two topics in this conference, the 5G and the cloud theme. So those are very new markets, new technologies, and rapidly developing markets. And not only the market is developing, also the attempts to certify or regulate those markets. So the conditions and the regulations change every few months. So we cannot ask developers to develop a product which needs 1 or 1.5 years. Then the product is completely developed, and then they go to evaluation. Evaluation needs a few months, several months, up to a year or more. And then after the evaluation, we go to the certification body, present the report, there are questions. So the whole process will last for 3 years in the worst case. And that's not applicable for the developing markets. And not only for the technology developing, but also, I mentioned it before, for the regulation developing. We see the same problem as you consider now with 5G or cloud at the moment in the German healthcare system, where we have actually the digitalization. And there is something of a certification body, the Gematik, German semi-governmental company. And the whole certification process and regulation process is new to them too. So also the regulation changes every 3 months, the requirements changes. So the developers are facing new regulations every few months, and so they cannot stop development and go back to start and make a new development meeting the new requirements. So what we need there is a continuous evaluation process, and that would also answer the question of validity of certificates, because we're in a continuous process. A certificate would be valid as long as the process holds on, and continuous evaluation could be guaranteed.
Okay, Alyosha?
Yes, I think the characteristics of certification market for cybersecurity have to match characteristics of cybersecurity market. So we should probably start with this clearly stating what are the characteristics, what makes cybersecurity market different from any other IT market. It's different from big data market, it's different from cloud market, IoT market. So cybersecurity is, my previous colleagues said, very dynamic, agile. So this, how can we match this? We've heard yesterday also some research projects trying to automate, to do this. I would bring forward one idea. It just happened to me right now that I was thinking the same issue was discussed in relation to regulation. Regulation and cybersecurity regulation is slow. It always comes after the market facts are already there, and there is a kind of research and sandbox which is RegTech. Maybe we need something called CertTech, where there is experimentation with agile certifications, with all these projects, like the one that yesterday was presented by Jesus Luna, where this CertTech is experimented in a safe sandbox and can be tested as the market dynamics is so volatile and it changes.
Okay, thank you very much. So just to summarize regarding incentives, which we should not forget the title of this panel, what was mentioned until now was in the introductory phase of Corina, money. You have said something like voucher. You have said something about, supporting small organization with knowledge by providing, for example, for free, and access to some labs or something. And it seems that in all these cases we are talking about a certification process which is happens stepwise and brings people to from the point they are now to the point we want to bring them. Okay, so just I would like to, as my last question, ask the following. What role does the whole thing plays in costs? Okay, so is it cheaper to produce, so to say, low quality systems, software or products, bring them in the market, and then when some things, the bomb explodes and something happens, then you escape to Bahamas with the money that you have made? Or is it, say, better to invest in quality, like, for example, we have, and create some competitive advantage of the style of Swiss clock, for example, or Swiss watch, or a premium product like Apple iPhone, so to say. So what can you tell us, or what can we tell to people following this regarding cost? So we heard previously, as Anska say, that you have 1 year development, then the evaluation takes another year and another year. I don't know. So actually, if you have, so your effort to develop something is one third of the entire cost, which, I mean, eventually is not really viable. So what can we do here? I mean, we have mentioned a few things, but I would like to concentrate on that. So what are the costs related to testing, to knowledge transfer, to accreditation, to you name it, in order to come down to a working certification scheme of whatever flexibility? Okay, what are the elements inside? So which parts are relevant regarding the certification in the relation to testing, quality, and costs for the companies? Let's start with Ayosa now.
Okay, so I think again yesterday there were a couple of hints mentioned. One was in the panel about methodologies, which I particularly liked. There was a discussion, for example, about FITSEM methodology, and so let's call them lightweight. Some people do not like this word lightweight methodology, where this screening-based approach instead of being, for many products, it could be enough. So it's not, there is no need to go, to formal methods, and for some kind of FITSEM-like methodologies could be enough, and to reduce cost. Another thing that was mentioned was shift left to reduce cost. Shift left, by this I mean moving to the earlier phase in software life cycle. So from the testing products at the end, to move towards the architecture and design, and security by design was mentioned also yesterday. And here I think we will start projects. For example, we will start in October, November, projects about certification on open source hardware, which is then used as there is the kind of root of trust in open source hardware that can be used later in software development lifecycle. So these kind of things are ideas to reduce costs, but I'm sure there are many more ideas. I mentioned something about automation before.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, so actually one way to reduce cost for certification is not to do certifications at all. That would
That's
actually,
the cheapest.
yes, exactly. And I think actually there is a lot of misconception about what the certification gives you. So very often we hear that the assurance is achieved, that the security is achieved, and I would tell you, no, that is not achieved at all. So what the only thing that the evaluators do and the certificates do, that yes, they check that the product meets the requirements. I'm sure that there are a lot of secure products that are not certified. So really what is important, that is the developer is doing all the work. So they create secure products, they design the products with security in mind, they apply their lifecycle processes. At some time they also test the products as well. And only when at some point the evaluators or their certifiers would come in and check that the requirements are actually met or not met and give the findings back to the developers, then it's up to them what they do with that. So unfortunately, we have seen some examples also in our evaluations where we give findings, either positives or negatives. The developers only fix those findings, and then they kind of don't go back and check if these findings would apply to any other products. And not improve the life cycle processes. In some other cases, basically, I think that the most important would be to go back, improve the processes, and ensure that similar problems would not arise. So that I think that would actually save a lot of money, both with certifications. They would kind of go much more smoother. But yeah, sometimes I would say that you have secure products without certifications.
Yes, which actually, just one short thing. This means, I think back to I think on this 27,000 certificates, so it takes, first of all, I remember once I was in London to get such a training, and I saw that there is a multi-billion business around this kind of knowledge transfer to the people to understand what is behind it. So actually, this is maybe something that somehow Europe should look on how can we educate people so that they understand that what we propose here is not Formula One level of specification, and they are already currently driving bicycle, so that we take some effort to bring the people from the point they are gradually to a certain level of knowledge, because it's all about knowledge, so that actually by putting knowledge in the brain, they reduce cost, to apply all this thing. But please, go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to point out that we are far beyond a perspective of costs for company regarding cybersecurity or information security. Nowadays, we are talking about costs for society. Functional information technology is a question of a functional society today. So that's the reason why we have Cybersecurity Act. That's the reason why we have ENISA for luck. Yeah. So there's a reason for all that. So I would try to avoid a cost-time perspective of a company by its own, but it's a cost perspective of the whole society. And then the second point, when you ask for what are the costs drivers or where's the possibility to reduce costs, from my experience with evaluation and auditing, I see there 2 points. The first is the awareness at the developer side to produce audit evidence. Developers develop products, and they do that very good. But when they develop products, they have not in mind to parallel produce audit evidence. We see that, for example, when we receive large pails of source code, not commented and with no data flow diagram, with no idea of combat, things like that. So the companies have to get used to produce or to develop their products with audit evidence. And the second is in my experience, very rigid schemes with very rigid requirements. I would like to give you a very short example. Once I was in a multinational company as a PCI QSA, and was auditing the passport policy of the company. And the PCI P2PE standard set very clear so many digits, that complexity, so many former used passwords in the history are not allowed, things like that. The company was very safe, but they had a difference of 1 digit in the password. It seems like be a very small effect, but to change that from the project management up to top management, to have a change in the passport policy and to adjust all the technical systems, the LDAP, the Active Directory and all the other systems, it needed months for a rather small change. And in some schemes we have some so-called compensating controls, which gives the auditor the freedom to see, okay, the security is not in place by word of the requirement, but there is an overall security, and I can, in my responsibility, I can guarantee that, and I can sign that. So that are 2 points I'd like to address when it is about to reduce costs of certification.
Okay. Yeah. Well, from what you tell me, I mean, if I imagine what people, who need to implement all this will say, they will say, okay, yes, of course we need for the society, but should I pay the society, advancement out of my small company pocket? I mean, I understand this, and I believe what people say outside. Say you guys are sitting in a ivory tower, and you think about some security requirements which are for the, for space or something, and you ask us to implement now, while I am producing a sensor for an IoT sensor for, I don't know, for a car or something, So there is a kind of discrepancy in conception. I mean, in understanding of what these things are, and the question is, how can we come closer to each other? I mean, of course, certification needs to go down to the market, what we discuss now about the market, and pick up the people from there and see what is possible and what kind of steps are required in between to come, gradually to a better quality, and one day meet a level of security which is equal to certification. Because we had this discussion in the past, this ISO 9000 certificates, which are the first. You could have a ISO 9000 certificate, and you produced, missed, stuff which was not worth 1 cent. So, and how to avoid this in general is the question. Of course, we heard a lot of things about flexibility and gradual things and other incentives, but I think that we definitely need to work further on that. With this, more or less, I think we are ahead of our time. We are finished the question that I had in mind. I have a question on you guys. Do you have something else that we forgot to discuss, or something that you would like to reflect back to ENISA from what you have heard, seen, and answered all in this panel and all these days?
Yes, Luis, I do have a comment, and this is about lessons learned. I think there is already some experience in certifications, or different types of certifications, and I think we also need a session, maybe for the next time, about lessons learned from the past. What was working, what was not working. So you mentioned ISO 27000, which is, if I'm not wrong, which is the 4th or 5th, the most important or most adopted certification scheme based on ISO standards. So it used to be even higher, I think. And every year there are 20 or even 30,000 companies certified. So what can we learn from ISO? Certification based on ISO 27000. What can we learn about cloud security certification? For example, we have Cloud Security Alliance is doing already certification for many years. The results, if you go there are like 14 companies certified with level 2 C-star scheme, which is not impressive number. So could it be higher? What was working? What was not working? C-star, for example, is doing Delta certifications, where when you already have ISO 27000 certification. So this was approach to reduce the cost for those that already have ISO 27000 certification. So all these lessons, I think it could be good to have lessons from the past, and to also to take it into account and to see what was working, what was not working.
Thank you, Alyosha. Anybody else who would like to add something?
Yes, just a simple wisdom: do not reinvent the wheel. We have seen that in many schemes, do not everything from scratch new, but make use of existing certifications, make use of existing qualifications, even in the recognition of audit teams, for example. There are a lot of industry standard certifications, qualifications, which you can use. You may use existing certifications by reducing the scope of a certification, things like that. But do not set up a new parallel certification structure.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, at least for me, I'm not an expert in certification, but I think we touch upon some things which are useful for me personally, being selfish for my projects. I think there is, from what we discussed, a lot of work to be done in getting the people where they are. We should not forget, I think, that regarding cybersecurity and the rest of this universe of the planet, we are still kind of exotic birds. So the cybersecurity people are exotic birds. I will tell you this from the experience we initiated last year a cybersecurity market analysis. Now this is a very new area. We need to avoid coming, with McLaren specifications at the time where people are still walking or going by bicycle, okay? And I think that we need to pass a lot of substantial knowledge to people. I think of this London quarter in the city where thousands of people are going and pick up for good money this knowledge. And of course, working on incentives, which is something that goes. We can make some proposal from ENISA, but goes far beyond our, I guess our mandate. I'm talking about the money voucher and free lunches regarding certification labs. Okay. I think we are done. Are we okay? Do you feel okay, Ayosa? Do you feel okay?
Yes.
Okay. Do you feel okay? Do you feel
yes, absolutely.
Do you feel okay?
Yes.
Thank you very
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luis. Speaking of free lunches, we have a free coffee break right now, so you are kindly invited to go and mingle, have a coffee, and for those at home, mingle in the Let's Go digital platform. So we'll see you back at 11:00 or 12:00 Athens time. So enjoy your break. So, hello, good afternoon. I hope everybody is back from the coffee break, stretching the legs, the mingle, everything. Hello again to our guests at home online on the platform, Let's Go Digital. So now I would like to call for the panel on the future of certification. So we do not have a crystal ball at ENISA, but we rely on the advice of these experts. And there is no certain prediction in this respect. So that's my all-time favorite thing, the future of. In this case, we're discussing about the future of cybersecurity certification, right? And well, the cyber criminals are not letting down. So are not backing down, are just inventing things every day. So we should not, and we should prepare for the future. So without further ado, I would like to invite for our moderator, Dr. Sharkov, and also his guest. One of our guests is going to be kind of a 10-15 minutes late, but he will join us. So please, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I see we have very selected audience here. I believe online we have also a lot of visitors because it's Friday noon, so maybe people are hurrying up to the... It's Friday noon? No? It's okay? Yeah. It's good timing. Okay. On the other hand, I promise this to be the most challenging and interesting panel because the topic is the future of certification. So I assume that after these 2 days of discussion and a lot of work for the last 2 years, everything around the current certification scheme, Cybersecurity Act, implementation and so on, everything is crystal clear for the present, or if not, it's not our fault. Then we'll see how the future will look like, how bright the future is. So I have on this panel, and thanks to ENISA organizing this distinguished panelist speaking. So we have the one which is who is missing. Yeah. No, he will join just a little bit later, maybe online. We'll see him there. Salvatore Salzu from the European Commission, DG Connect. So he's from the important policy and legal advising officer position. I have to the left Sonia Kompans. She's from ETSI, technical officer, coordinating the work of several technical committees, important for this topic. And yeah, I go like this, but maybe no, ladies first. Erika Magonara, right? Good, okay, Italian name, right? From ENISA, cybersecurity officer, and Gabriel Said, the representative from industry, Thales, researcher and security analyst. So as we speak about the future certification, we have to detail what type of certification in what field. So there are many, in addition to the Cybersecurity Act and the major discussion around cybersecurity certification schemes these 2 days, we have additional areas of interest. So we have AI Act, of course, that's among the new disrupting technologies, the way we say, is the hot topic. And as far as I know, this is the favorite topic and subject of our panelists as well. But we shouldn't forget that there are other new areas that will need soon to be certified, tested, and implemented in a more secure way. So we have yesterday, it was touched by our colleague from BSI, Sabro, about the Cyber Resilience Act, and we have other areas, but we have other challenging technology areas like, well, we have already a scheme on that 5G, but we have quantum computing that's coming. We have, yeah, blockchains mentioned and many other things that are coming. And we have the so-called Cybersecurity 3.0, which I don't know what it means, but and the same with the Industry 4.0. But all these areas will need to get some standards and certification. Now, I will give the floor to the, but I have first like 3-4 general questions to all the audience, all the panelists first, of course. So if we consider the AI Act and consider their certification schemes, how we can make sure that we align that with what we have already or what we have discussed or it's on the way with the cybersecurity certification schemes, and what could be certified, when and how we can make this it's like in a complementary way or synchronized way, not in parallel. Then we have also, of course, the what type of standards they should be based on, what is existing, what will be developed, and we know that there is currently a request by the Commission actually to the European standardization bodies about the availability, and there is a study, maybe Erika will tell something more on that, the availability of standards, the gaps, European standards, international standards. Then we have question or issues or challenges on the implementation. So we have discussed the implementation of Cybersecurity Act and this NCCAs, CABs, and so on. So how this is going to work, and is intended to work with the AI Act, for example. And what is existing actually in the area from technology viewpoint, and I expect mainly Gabriel to comment on that, but what could be tested, what is tested now, what are the challenges there, what the challenges are, and how we can live in this multi-standard, most probably, world, and we will have multi certification schemes as well, how we can align that. I think that's to begin. So you can choose, pick up your favorite question and answer. If you don't have a question to your answer, I will ask you a question after that. Yeah, Eric.
Okay, then I will choose the first question about what we will certify and how. Thanks for the choice. So yes, I work in the ENISA team that deals with certification and standardization, and indeed we've been very busy in figuring out the present of certification, as you were saying. When we look at the future, AI seems like a good test bed because to look at, because it's a new technology, it's very important, will be even more important. And also, the regulatory framework is evolving around that. So we have the Draft AI Act that contains an article that specifically refers to cybersecurity certification schemes. So this article foresees the presumption of conformity with cybersecurity requirements for high-risk AI systems that have been certified or for which there has been a statement of conformity issued under the scheme. The article has like 4 lines, but puts on the table really very important questions. So, for example, when we talk about certificates and statement of conformity, this could correspond to levels of assurance that basic, substantial, and high, all of that. So how are we going to make sure that, that our certification scheme addresses this level? Then there is the notion of risk. The AI Act refers to high-risk AI system, and the meaning of risk in that context is the impact on health, safety, and on fundamental rights. Whereas from the perspective of the CSA, the risk is mainly a technical risk. It's a risk of incidents, attacks, and it's in terms of impact or probability. So we just start with that, with with the link, with the formal link between cybersecurity certification and AI, and I will let you take up from there.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe Sonia, we continue with the you. Well, ladies first. Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. Hello? You hear me now? Okay, good. Maybe to start with, yeah, so I work for ETSI, which is the 3rd European Standards Organization, and we haven't talked about it too much so far, but it exists. We are recognized as an ESO, and we have really a world record in terms of standardization and deployment. So just think of your mobile phone and all the mobile networks you're using. This is due to ETSI and its partnership project 3GPP, and hopefully the EU 5G scheme is building and will be building on those available standards. And also, one thing that we haven't talked about is all the trust services in the EIDAS regulation, for example. They are all based and using ETSI European standards. So that's worth noting, even if no scheme from the CSA is being built around that. So anyway, I think from the AI viewpoint, I would say. So yeah, ETSI is the SDO actually having a group specializing in security of artificial intelligence. So it's been working on this topic for 3 years now, or even 4 now, I think. And they really have 3 aspects they're planning to cover. So first, securing AI. So that's the topic we're in now. But also looking at mitigating from malicious AI, and also how to use AI to improve cybersecurity. So they've been focusing for the past 3 years on the first topic, which is, let's say, the most prevalent one so far. And they made quite good achievements. They made a problem statement of what it is that's securing AI. They made a threat ontology. They made mitigation strategy report. So really a deep research analysis of the various projects and technical research that is working on finding solutions to mitigate threats against AI. And I think, yeah, to pick up on Erika's point and the fact that the draft AI Act provisions to provide presumption of conformity if the system has a certificate from the Cybersecurity Act, I think is a good opportunity to actually define a certification scheme under the Cyber Act, because it would then be very useful for all other types of legislations on which the AI Act is built upon. So there is this Annex 2, I think, or 3, where they list all the market access legislations that will apply and will be used if there's no certification scheme, actually. So if we don't have a certification scheme, then it will be up to each legislation, each product within this legislation to find its way using the formal ways imposed by those legislation to get, the products on the market. So from the industry viewpoint, that will be certainly a challenge. So working on a certification scheme within the Cyber Act is really meaningful. Maybe I will stop there for the time being.
Yeah, thank you. Just before we are going to Gabriel comment. Why do you say they? You are part of this. You are the secretary of this. And I have the pleasure to be part of this industry specification group, which is a lightweight technical committee. And the important point I want to underline there is that before we talk about the scheme, certification and everything, we should identify clearly the risks. And to do that, we did a threat landscape, which is quite aligned with what ENISA publishes, a report on threat landscape, or they call it different way, challenges. And an essential part there is not just about list of threats, vulnerabilities, the classical thing that we do with cybersecurity, but it's to differentiate the life cycle, the development life cycle and implementation life cycle of AI-based applications. And to differentiate the new set of threats, let's call it like that, that come from the different model of AI, because AI is, on one hand, is a set of technologies, but if we consider the development, the algorithmic part, this is software that has been developed, but the majority of the behavior and risks that come with the AI systems are how you train them, how you get data, if we consider the classical machine learning model, neural networks and so on. So how you train them, where you get the data, so you have a wide range of threats coming from data bias and so on. But also after that, how you use them, because to the contrary of the standard software, these are constantly evolving systems. So the machine learning depends equally on the developers, implementers, the trainers. So we have the new profession. AI coach or AI trainer. That doesn't exist with the standard software. But and at the end of the day, the shared responsibility with the end users. So the risk areas that we talk in the AI Act, they're not that much about the software, the robustness of the software itself, or the algorithmic part, the technology part. They're about the implementation and the use of it, and this evolution. So I would say that in this aspect of this line of thinking, if you consider that you can test and validate something in a lab before you go launch it, it's like algorithmic part, the neural network model and whatever, you can test with the training data sets, with the testing data sets. How does it go in life, and how we can apply different tests? So maybe Gabriel can shed some light on that, what they do already.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a security researcher in a security lab in Thales, and our main goal is to assess the robustness of different kind of products against physical and software attacks. So while our goal up to here was to find some solution to certify products against software attacks from a cybersecurity point of view, here we have to find other solutions to understand how we can evaluate the artificial intelligence product, and mainly how we can evaluate the security of those products. So to evaluate those products, we have to find some methodologies that we not necessarily develop up to now, but typically one solution can be to consider different kind of scenarios. So first, if a product is available on the market such that there is no self-training process related to this product. Okay, so the product does not evolve on the market, therefore the target of evaluation that will be provided to the security lab can be efficiently and easily evaluated because we have some rules, some procedures to perform such evaluation. But one of the most interesting challenges is how can we perform such evaluation when a system evolved on the market. So, for example, if there is a self-training process, how can we anticipate the self-training process when the product will be available on the market? And in particular, when we consider the self-training process, which person will perform this self-training process? The self-training process will be performed by the users, by the company, or by the AI itself, and all of those new threats should be considered in an evaluation, and for now it's currently a challenge, and unfortunately we do not have the right answer to that question.
So maybe the right answer will be in the schemes, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I understand that we need, okay, if we identify the risks or the threats in a unified way, at least we can classify them in good taxonomy, ontology, or whatever. But we want to unify, in a way, the requirements and the tests that will be performed. So looking at the Cybersecurity Act, we said, okay, the schemes will be preferably based on international standards, but certifiable standards. So the standards that will have this supplementary part, the guidelines of implementation and so on, like we have with the classical ISO 27K as well. But we have also the testing methods in a unified way. So what is the situation with the standards in the field of AI, in this case, addressing these different vulnerabilities, or what could be tested? We have Salvatore finally. Welcome, Salvatore. Do you hear us?
Yes, I hear, and I hope you can hear me.
Yes, you missed the introduction part, but I will give you the floor or the screen or the microphone just in a minute.
Sure, sure, no problem at all.
Thank you for joining us. So we are at the stage we made a review of the schemes, the necessity of the scheme, and what should be addressed and what should be, let's say, what could be actually tested and validated. And now we speak about the unified, eventually, standards that exist. So I come back to maybe Erika and Sonia to say a few words about that, because I know the Commission at the AI Security Group with ENISA, we have this report about starting this initiative on, let's say, study or survey on existing standards.
Yeah, indeed.
In the AI field.
Actually, we are in close contact with Salvatore and the Commission, because the Commission is working towards preparing the implementation of the AI Act in terms of standardization, and of course there are in the draft AI Act cybersecurity requirements that will require cybersecurity standards. So we are collaborating on a study with standardization and AI experts in order to identify what are the standards that are available and could help implement the AI Act and possibly develop a cybersecurity scheme, but also the study should identify the gaps. So, and in that sense, we will also be working with the standardization organizations and inform the discussion with the standardization organization for the standards that will be needed in the future.
So when do we expect this study to publish so that we have a picture more or less what is existing?
So it's in the drafting phase. We hope to be able to publish, by the end of the year. I don't want to commit here in a public space.
Okay. No, you're not. There are
no,
other responsible people from the ENISA here, so they can commit.
No, but indeed that's the timeline. Okay. But anyway, since we are in contact with the Commission and with the standardization body, it's not that we will have to wait for the end of the study to start the discussion. And I think that's a very important point because, as you were mentioning before, as a draft standardization request is on the table, the standardization bodies are preparing their standardization plans, so we cannot wait for the end of the year.
Thank you. That's one part. Before going to Sonia about the standards, maybe just include Salvatore in the talk. So we introduce each other, but it's one open topic which I will link to what Erika said about this study. It's about we focus definitely on AI. I mean, it's but we can touch other subjects as well. But related to AI Act, I think that consultations they have ended last month or something like that. They started August last year. I'm not sure if Salvatore, you can shed some light on these results, already preliminary. But the point there is if we have AI certification scheme, or not only security, but certification scheme, is this going to be yet another certification scheme on the top of different from the cybersecurity certification scheme, and maybe the coming cyber resilience certification scheme, and maybe yet another? So how do we harmonize that, and aren't we killing the business in this way? Yeah.
Oh, thanks a lot. I will. I think I take a step back because there is probably one general observation I would like to make is that fundamentally the AI Act was the first example where we tried to substantiate one expectation which was already clear in the Cybersecurity Act of 2019, meaning to make use of cybersecurity schemes where they exist also to demonstrate compliance with product safety legislation. That was a link which was until last year completely missing in any product legislation. And that was a continuous request, actually, even by the community, by the different stakeholders, by manufacturers, because in reality, the risk was, in fact, as you correctly say, to have a double certification, right? Or anyway, two streams which work in parallel and without, let's say, not too many points of contact. What we have tried in the AI Act is, in fact, really to avoid the double certification, because if a certification scheme exists in the context of AI, that certification scheme could be used by the provider of an AI system to demonstrate the compliance with Article 15, which is basically the requirement on cybersecurity. So, in fact, I would say the objective is exactly to avoid any duplication. Now, of course, the precondition, I mean, the AI Act is like typical product legislation. There is like machinery, medical devices, toys, radio equipment. I'm sure that you and also the attendants are quite familiar with these systems. So basically you have requirements set at high level, and then you have a conformity assessment procedure, so-called, which you have to follow to demonstrate your compliance. So this is the standard procedures. Of course, it's a certification procedure where which could be done either by self-certification, depending on the product in question, or through the intervention of a notified body. What we did with, of course, even a certification scheme could be created. At the moment, we don't know. Of course, it's an option in which I would say the Commission is generally interested. I think already also Erika mentioned probably that already. We are interested in that perspective. And if a scheme is created, I can certainly ensure that not only we have the legal look to make use of it under the AI Act conformity assessment procedure, but to make sure that there is a full, let's say, consistency also with the logic of the AI Act and facilitate, I would say, this use. I touch now on the last question you made, what is the consultation? I mean, we had the consultation on the AI Act, which was launched in the last spring. It ran, as you correctly say, until August. Of course, the topics were many. So this point was, let's say, touched upon only by some attendants, but I think that generally speaking, there was an extremely good reception of these provisions, notably this Article 42 in the AI Act, because in fact, as I said, this was a long-standing request from the community. So to make sure that schemes could be used also in the context of product legislation. Now, both for the AI Act, and I close on that, and for the schemes, we need good standards in place. And here I echo what Erika said. So now the challenge is to have standards, because no matter whether a scheme under the CSA will exist or not, we will need standards under the AI Act to facilitate the work of the providers to show compliance. And that is probably the most important challenge, I would say, in the short and medium term.
Thank you. So maybe we continue with this the standards viewpoint and what exists already. And maybe one of the advantages, let's say, we have with the AI Act is that we are just at the beginning. So there are most probably, you mentioned like if there are national schemes or certification procedures, certificates existing for AI, we will build upon on that, or we will have transition like with the Cybersecurity Act, where you have a lot of countries with quite advanced national systems on that. But with AI, I doubt if this exists. So we have to step on what is the international, at least standardized, or from the technological viewpoint. So what we have at ETSI, or what is coming, you know, also in ISO and the other standardization bodies?
Well, I think one important point is maybe that for standards, the community has to focus on what's specific to AI, and that to apply any usual IT standards or procedures or assessment that also applies to AI, and really to focus on what's specific to AI, what are the specific threats that are created by an AI system. And so to respond to the AI Act, which requires it from a global viewpoint, there is a risk assessment, general one related also to safety, health, and so on. But there needs to be one part of it, at least, dedicated to really the cybersecurity threats. And I think here the group in ETSI already made some analysis of the different threats going on, and there are specific threats like, I don't know, data poisoning, for example, or in the data supply chain, for example, which is very critical to be confident that the AI systems performs as you expect it to perform. So there's been ongoing work, more, I would say, at the study and analysis viewpoint so far in ETSI, and also, I mean, beyond purely security, even the ISO IEC JTC1 SC42 has made, let's say, primary results in setting more a framework than putting strict requirements on the table. So we need to move a step further, and with those analyses now, how can we drive standards? That current positioning within ETSI is to try to have generic standards to be applicable to whole those high-risk systems, so agnostic of specific applications. And so that's the, let's say, the path that is foreseen, and I think that would be useful also within a cybersecurity certification schemes that would need to be quite, generic. So, and I think from the standardization viewpoint, even if now we don't know, there's no request for certification scheme, there's no yet an AI Act, the standardization request has been provided to the standards organizations. So this will come, I think, officially in the autumn. Salvatore will confirm what's the planning. But yeah, we have, I think, as standardizers, room to work and to both target, I would say, the AI Act generic standards, but also be fit maybe for certification scheme, so that maybe whatever comes first, or that they can be used by both legislations and for the benefit of the industry, basically.
So we have interesting intersection between the field of cybersecurity in terms of standards and AI, general AI, and specifically security for AI. So we have this intersection, and I remember even that the picture announcing the study with the schemes in the AI group with ENISA. It's like we have two circles, intersection there, and this intersection will mean that cyber security for AI, but that's addressing that part. On the other hand, we have specific AI features, like we said, these additional features like data-oriented or specific algorithms, machine learning. So we have this, the very large list of attacks towards at the algorithmic level even on that, or how you train it. That's developed by ENISA as well. And so we will have these additional features that are related more to the or coming from these ethical guidelines for AI, trustworthy AI, trustworthiness, human-centric approach and trustworthiness, where you have these additional, let's say, features to test, or additional areas is like explainability, transparency, repeatability, reproducibility, actually, in a very special way with AI. I remember we had that discussion, so what's reproducibility there? So given the same data, get the same results, which doesn't work with AI, it works with the classical software. So all these additional features, some of them, we tend to name them like socio-technical because they're not completely technical, but how do we standardize them and how we test them? Can we test explainability, for example? Can we audit that?
It's a very good question because, for example, when we consider, in our lab, we consider the artificial intelligence to perform attacks on different kind of systems. And one of the main issues when we consider the artificial intelligence to perform those attacks is about the lack of explainability and interpretability, because the artificial intelligence, like machine learning or neural network, can mainly be considered as black box model. So finding a solution to clearly understand the decision making made by each of those models can be a problem, because in a certification process and in a testing process, we have to clearly understand all the steps we want to perform in order to identify the threats, the vulnerabilities, and so on and so forth. So if we want to get a little bit further and to understand how we can testing an AI system and reduce the black box issues, there is some techniques that can be useful to reduce this limitation, but there is no generic answer to say, if I have to test a specific AI implementation, therefore I can clearly explain each of its decision making. And maybe the problem we have in this kind of standardization is because the technology is maybe not developed enough and advanced enough. So maybe in the next few years, the solution that will be provided by the scientific community regarding the explainability and the interpretability problems can be a solution to the standard certification.
Thank you. So I know you're a cybersecurity officer there, but this means that you do the tests, when you do the tests of your products on cybersecurity, those that are AI enabled to empower it, you do additional tests that are related to specific AI attacks, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's the normal way also we expect maybe the schemes to work. Maybe Erika, you or Salvatore, you can comment how the complementarity of the schemes will be achieved so that we have, wherever we have cyber capacity already, and maybe these NCCAs and CABs, whatever testing labs, that they could be extended with the AI features, or we develop new parallel structure like NCCAs and that part. So this is the implementation viewpoint of the certification schemes, or maybe it depends on the country, of course, and the capacity. And the second point is, do we need maybe to extend the cybersecurity certification and amend additional features for those AI-empowered systems? So in our cybersecurity certification scheme so far, we haven't considered that part. So if you have AI-empowered system, that you have additional testing, additional requirements, and additional testing procedure. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed, there is both the CSA and the AI Act. They put in place an ecosystem of CAPs, of actors that have to deal with certification. And I think this circles back to the point that Sonia was making, in the sense that we have the AI Act, which is a draft. We don't have a mandate to develop a scheme yet, but there is this article. We might think that the act will come before the scheme. So how to make the different governance models coherent, not only also time-wise, meaning putting in place, if the draft AI Act will become reality before a scheme, making sure that whatever is put in place will help us implement, will be coherent with whatever scheme we will implement. And here, maybe I will let Salvatore talk about the conformity assessment framework put in place by the Draft AI Act.
And the expected complementarity of that.
And expected complementarities.
Salvatore? Yeah?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was muted.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thanks for this. Maybe I started. There was, first of all, a question before that I would like just to touch upon briefly on the standard. Indeed, I confirm that the planning is to have the first standards request in October, because there was a specific point on that. So I fully confirm on my side. We have just started the process, which may end, in my view, at some point in early autumn, indeed. Now, on this, I will say something on the structures and then on the conformity assessment, also following up to what Erika has indicated. On the excellence, I think your observations are very much very important. I would like to say on the AI Act, and notably from the Commission side, working on the AI Act, that and this is a point which is important to stress, because sometimes people just see the AI Act in isolation. So from the AI strategy perspective, we are also part of the AI strategy is this coordinated plan on artificial intelligence, because on the one hand, we say that we intend to build an ecosystem of trust through rules, but on the other hand, we also want to build an ecosystem of excellence through appropriate investments, and also making available the relevant expertise, and of course also research functions to support whatever is in the ecosystem of trust. In that context, we would like, also when looking it from the certification perspective, we would like to assign an important role to these testing and experimentation facilities that we would like, and we are in the course of establishing across the EU, which could play an important role to support, first of all, of manufacturers in the context of actual experimentation and testing. But we also see a role to support certification bodies. No, the challenge is certainly significant, but I can certainly anticipate that for us, one of the objectives of this structure, which are AI dedicated, would be also to support relevant work of certification related to certification activities. So this is a point I wanted to make. On the conformity assessment procedure, I can provide also following up to the comment from Erika. Our conformity assessment system is the one of typical internal market rules for products, meaning that we may have cases, I mean, I won't go into the details, but I can if needed. So basically we have a high-risk AI system is the scope of the AI Act. For some systems, we have a self-certification process, notably for standalone systems that have fundamental right implications that are totally unregulated at the moment. Think of AI, which is used for recruitment or for, I don't know, delivery of essential public or private services. Then, on the other hand, we have the third-party certification for AI systems which relate to products, which are safety components of products, or systems that are used for biometric identification. Those will be the ones that will be subject from the outset to third-party certification. And the third-party certification in the system of the AI Act is to be carried out by a notified body. Which are these conformity assessment bodies, which are designated and monitored by the member states. Of course, cybersecurity is only part of, so we need to ensure the consistency if there will be a future certification scheme, but cybersecurity is of course only a part of the overall assessment of the AI system, because you know that we have many other requirements related to data quality, related to human oversight or record keeping, just to mention some. So what we have to see is that to make sure that the certification related to cybersecurity will be used to, let's say, finalize and close the cybersecurity part for the conformity assessment procedure under the Act, so that the provider would have, hopefully, and that is the hope, to justify and to focus only on the demonstration of compliance with the other requirements other than cybersecurity if he has already followed a certification procedure under the cybersecurity scheme. I hope this is clear, but happy to complement.
Well, it will be clearer next year, maybe, when we continue that discussion, because we are running out of time. I think we have 5 more minutes, right? Thank you. Well, I have a wide list of questions still to ask, but anyway, so to summarize at this point, so the cybersecurity certification or testing of as applied to AI will ensure to some extent the so-called technical robustness of AI. But to complete the trustworthiness cycle, we will need additional, on the top of cybersecurity or security of AI, we will need these other aspects, other features that will be needed, like explainability and so on. But also, we need to follow the complete life cycle and the processes I started at the beginning, the specific one. So there is a lot to audit, I would say, or to monitor during the exploitation of the system, AI-based system. So there is a lot, if we spoke yesterday about this continuous testing and certification in terms of cyber security, this is 100% valid, or it's even more valid and more specific for AI systems, because they will evolve, they will continue their evolution of their, changing of their behavior. Whatever we certify today, the system in use tomorrow will be totally different. It will be self-modified, self-learning, so talking about the deep learning systems, for example. And how do we continue to monitor that if we issue a certificate today? So that's maybe other type of features like self-monitored system, self-healing, whatever. So we go more in direction of resilience even there. But these features, how are we going to certify it or to audit that? Maybe these are just maybe these are processes rather than features, rather than technology, because we have to follow the process until the end. I mean, it's...
I think that whatever we want, we can certify a product, but there is also a trade-off to find between the robustness of a product and the performance of a product. Because, for example, if we robustify a product for different kind of attacks, maybe its performance will be non-negligibly degraded. So we have to find the best trade-off between the both metrics, and this is mainly one of our main challenge as a tester, because if you want, when we made a test, we have to define a use case, we have to define a security target, and depending on the test, depending on the certification process, depending on the methodology, we will prefer the robustness or the performance of the product. But from our point of view, from a security lab point of view, we will always prefer a robust system instead of
that's for sure. We have to start with okay. Talking about the implementation and cost. Yeah, we have to finish. I know, 2 minutes. Okay, that's the last thing, and it's a very generic question. Actually, we have been criticized that by putting standards, even for cybersecurity, but now with AI and around the discussion of AI Act, is that we are limiting innovations and that part, so put a lot of restrictions, red lines, so especially consider these unacceptable risk areas. But when we talk about the high risk areas, in terms of AI Act, then we have maybe additional set of requirements, maybe specific schemes on the top of general AI security for autonomous devices, healthcare devices, biometric, and so on, this security related. So do we expect different schemes there, or is just extended schemes with the specific standards combined with specific standards for these fields? And this is one thing that is you can shortly answer. Maybe the answer is no yet. We're not ready, not there yet. But and the point also that we always consider the risk as something negative. So the risk, the classical understanding in cyber even, okay, is that something wrong will happen, something bad will happen. In the recent NIST published AI risks management framework, they said, okay, the risk could be positive. So the restrictions or the tests that we do, can we turn them from the constraints to advantages, market advantages, like the schemes, what we do. So we speak about security by design, resilience by design, when we do the AI secure by design or technically robust by design. Is it a market advantage or a constraint?
No answer, I think it's time to close.
Yeah. No, you close online and we continue. The last word, yeah.
I think this, I want to take a step back, and maybe we should have started the session by asking ourselves, what are we going to certify when we certify AI? So from the perspective of cybersecurity, and based on that, I guess when we will decide that, we will be able also to understand what the risks are, but also what are the opportunities in terms of the messages we want to send with this with the certification scheme.
Salvatore, last word before you shut down.
No, the last word is, I mean, that this is also, you know, it's a challenging area with a lot of learning by doing. So it may sound banal, but I think that the best we can do from the regulator's perspective is really to gather together all the different parts of the puzzle, so to make sure that we link between us. We are trying to do it with ENISA and with the stakeholder community, the standardization community, to make sure that indeed we can really try to make our best over the next few years and put in place an infrastructure which is fit for purpose and also future-proof. I wouldn't say that because, as it was emphasized, this is an extremely challenging and emerging topic. So it is And I think that's for me the best lesson we could draw. And no, definitely, just the quick note to your question on the vertical, we see it in the AI Act in general being mostly horizontal with some then extension on certain vertical considerations. So my answer is no. Thank you.
Thank you for that remark. Sonia, last word.
I think it's time to close. There's one key question for standards is whether allowing only harmonized standards within the draft act isn't an issue, because we will need some other standards for other type of things rather than just harmonized standards. So opening up the act to other standardization deliverable will be beneficial to all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Gabriel.
Maybe just
10 seconds.
Yeah. From our point of view, so from a tester point of view, maybe what we can say is that for improving the testing procedure, we have to take into consideration, of course, the certification progress, but also the technology's progress, because mainly of our restriction is due to the lack of technology's emergence or maturity. So we have to take both conditions into consideration during our test for being sure of our certification.
Thank you so much. I think we had a nice discussion. We had more questions than answers, but anyway, we turn them into challenges and we answer next year. Okay? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Sharkov. Well, you see, that's the issue with the looking into the future. We cannot predict what is going to happen. We could not predict that this panel will be late. So we make a short break until sharp, and then we'll meet for the last session. Don't leave. Don't go far. The best is yet to come. So please. Thank you. Hello. So we will start the last session of the conference. So if you'd like to get seated, and I would like to invite my panelists. So please. So good afternoon. This is the last session of the Cybersecurity Certification Conference 2022, again in Athens. I would like to present my panelists. So first of all, Dr. Sharkov, he was in the panel for the future of the cybersecurity certification. Philip Blow, my colleague at ENISA for the cybersecurity certification schemes, and Luis Marinos for the market. We have collected some questions from the Let's Go Digital platform. But before doing so, I would like to, let's say, frame it like a Greek drama kind of a thing, to give a little bit of a Greek context into the story. So some time ago, I wrote with my colleague in the commission the untold story of the European Open Science Cloud. And I think at some point in time, maybe in 10, 20 years, let's hope we can tell the untold story of the cybersecurity certification in Europe. Because you know, historians would write about the progelomena. So we know how the whole journey started, right? And they can help us with this thing, hopefully. Then we are in a bit of a climax, so yeah, of a Greek non-drama, hopefully. So we know the cyber, it's here to stay, cybersecurity. So this is where we are. So, And we also know that there are moments in time that, define some ages. And in this respect, I think 2019 was one of these kind of Oracle of Delphi moment that defined cybersecurity in Europe. And I'm not speaking only about the Cybersecurity Act, but also about the new mandate for ENISA. And to finish with a reflection, and hopefully this will frame the whole thing. Sometimes in time we're going to have a catharsis moment, and so hopefully we'll be coming out of this Greek drama of cybersecurity threats and everything, and when we see a future for cybersecurity in Europe, and a bright future, I would say, and or hopefully not, be punished like Prometheus was punished having brought in the fire or not. So with that, I would like to ask my fellow panelists to give a brief summary of the panels, and then we will proceed with the question and answers, please. Philippe, maybe you are the first.
Okay, I still can remember what was discussed. That's good. So we give first a presentation of the life cycle of the certification schemes in order to indicate where we stand currently on the three schemes under development, and then I asked my ENISA colleagues what were the challenges that they had or have to face for the creation of the schemes. And on EU 5G, there were two ones mentioned. The first would be the what to certify within the full scope of 5G. What are the elements that deserve certification and the ones we really can certify according to a EU scheme? And the second challenge was the alignment of the EU scheme with existing schemes that can be both from industry and also existing EU schemes such as the EUCC or EUCS. So this synchronization of schemes. On EUCS, there were also two types of challenges. The first one was to reconcile two communities that had developed two sets of different set requirements and evaluation methodologies into a single set, and which was achieved, and everything now has been passed to Sensenelec for their maintenance and updates. And the second challenge was the one related to handling some sovereignty constraints, especially through the establishment of criteria for independence to non-EU laws. On EUCC, last but not least, the mention was made on how to develop attractivity from the market, industry, CAPS, so all the players that will that are the ecosystem related to certification and users, of course, how to create the good conditions for attractivity to this scheme from the market and the stakeholders. Thanks.
Thank you, Philippe. Luis?
Thank you. I just connect to the last sentence again about the market that Philippe just said. Well, we discussed, I mean, the title was about market incentives, but this was not mainly touched. What we touched upon is about some market-related issues of user certificates. Reasons for certification efforts, unfortunately, is because they are mandatory. So the volunteer part is a fairly small one, and probably from an organization that can afford it, and have already a very good position on the market, and would like to maintain it. We have seen that there are a lot of different sources where certification is coming up or emerges from laws and regulations and so on. Potentially here was the ENISA Directive 2, which actually will generate requirements even for procurement. The supply chain issues have been touched upon about procurement and so on. Then I think the most important part was, in my opinion, to understand the gap between reality and what are the objectives for a certification, so that we provide some scalability and dynamic development or gradual development of skills or technologies or knowledge about certification, so that we can start from where we are now and give the opportunity to market players to slowly evolve over the years, also depending eventually on the different levels of certification to be achieved from low to high and whatsoever. So it seems that we need to make some thoughts about these transition paths that will be necessary to accommodate these changes. The validity of certificates, I think, was an important issue too. Also the part, how can we synchronize the life cycle of certificate with product life cycles, product development life cycles. I think this may be a challenge somehow. But also to think of some international acceptance of certificates. I think some of the questions I have received will allow me later to say something more concrete on this stuff. Then finally, we discussed a little bit about testing, quality versus costs and so on. And it seems that here we need to pay attention on avoiding the ISO 9000 certificates philosophy that we have seen in the past, where everybody was paying some money, had the certificate, and then nobody knew if the product is worth or is meeting this quality assurance level, so that we actually have a substantial process to accompany the life cycle of certificates and the product, so that we make sure that the objectives for securing the target or evaluation continue during, for example, further development, updates, operation, and so on of the product, and eventually these are at least equally important as a high-level certificate that has been obtained at some time point of the product, and then nobody checks up if this is still the case.
Thank you very much, Luis. Dr. Charkov, what about the future of cybersecurity certification and how certification can adapt to new or emerging technologies, I would add, like AI?
Thank you. Actually, the panel focused mainly on emerging technologies, on AI, in AI direction, although I open it to other new disrupting technologies or whatever we call, like quantum and so on. So I had on a panel, can you show the slide? The next one. Okay, thank you. We had on a panel Salvatore from the Commission, Erika from ENISA, and Sonia from ETSI, standardization body, and Gabriel from Thales. So we had representatives from different stakeholders on that and different positions. So the main point was, as I said, focusing on AI and AI Act implementation specifics. First of all, that the schemes, certification schemes and whatever audit testing procedures expected under this AI Act are similar to those that we discuss as a methodology, as an organization, that we have discussed the last 2 days and last 2 years, maybe, with the Cybersecurity Act and certification. But the intention is actually, and the wish is that they will be complementary, not separate, not parallel like that, so built on the top of each other as well, both in terms of content or the scope. So apparently the first schemes that will be issued most probably in AI direction will be related to cybersecurity or security of AI, rather than other aspects that come from the ethical guidelines and the strategy, like socio-technical and so on, like explainability and other aspects, although they are features which will be recommended and added as a requirements to developers. The second point is that it's very important to identify first what we need to certify, what could be certified, and what we need and how we can certify that. Because some of the features that we speak about are not measurable in terms of laboratory testing. Here we are talking and focusing on the specific life cycle of AI-based applications. So the life cycle is a little bit different from the software development or IT development life cycle and the implementation. The maintenance is very important, and you have other, let's say, lines of development that are related to training data, maintaining the use or the consistency of the decisions, or exploitation of the system, which is to the contrary of the most of the classical systems, is continuously evolving, and it's self-learning, self-modifying, and so on. So you have different responsibilities, not only on what you have, like the technical robustness, let's call it like that, that you can test in the lab, and this has been done and also illustrated by the industry quite well by Gabriel. But also you have to monitor how the system behaves during the exploitation. So we need other type of certification will not help in this case. So we have to look at the third part of what we have in the Cyber Act, product, services, and processes. So we have to see how this evolves in the processes of exploitation. So we don't have yet schemes about the processes. Maybe I haven't heard, and it's specific for AI. So apparently we will go, the first level of certification or standard schemes will be focused mainly on the cyber of, security of AI, but that will develop in the future as well. And also regarding the underlying standards, so what you can test based on international standards, apparently such standards do not exist that much, or if they exist, they are related to very specific technical aspects of AI. So there is this request by the Commission to the standardization bodies. So Sonia was talking at ETSI about that, but yesterday we heard about Sensenelec and the other standardization organizations in Europe to revise what we have, and also to make this according to the rolling plan and see what could be and would be developed in the near future, so that this can support certification schemes. I think that's the short. Maybe I want to put one note here, what I ended up without discussing actually with the panel. But all the time we speak about risk and risk management, so talking about cybersecurity certification, and now we talk about AI as well. So in most cases, and I want to underline that the risks that we consider, they always put some constraints, some limitations that we do, because we consider the negative risks. So what is the negative impact on our system? What is the damage? What is the harm that is done? So we want to mitigate and prevent that with all these audits, testing, certification requirements. Well, in the latest NIST AI risk management framework, they put, okay, the risk could be positive as well. So whatever we identify as risk, this could be considered, if we mitigate it properly, this could be considered as a competitive advantage, market opportunity, and so on. And I think we are in a good position with this human-centric approach to the AI, which is different from the industrial, like in US and other providers, other advanced countries, that maybe short-term this will look like constraints or like limiting the innovations, industry, and so on. But long-term, that could be really quite good advantage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I would like to go to the questions that we received. So for the, I think these are some questions for you, Philippe. So first of all, it's we got a number of questions that are somehow connected, but since sovereignty is a key topic, can you expand a little bit on the statement on the independence to non-EU law? And then we have some questions on the ICT ecosystem and on the schemes, and also who is the final owner of the scheme. So please go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks, and there is here a nice variety of questions. So yesterday there was in the keynote of UN LPSR some highlights on why sovereignty is a key topic. And here, so I will only here illustrate examples of what we would consider independence to non-EU law criteria that could apply. And here I have three examples. First, that in order to prevent that service provider would be in the bad position due to non-EU laws to compromise EU-sensitive data that they would be storing or transmitting or processing, or even that they would be forced to cease their activities on EU. So we have possible examples of measures that could be comprised, for example, of having contracts with this cloud service provider under EU jurisdiction, so that disputes would be solved in EU courts. We have a second type of criteria that would be related to location of data. Location so would be in Europe. And the third example I could take is trusted employees. So we would define some criteria related to what we call trusted employees and also their location. Sorry.
Yeah, go.
Yeah,
go.
on the second question, so, okay, we are not even done with 5G, that people want to speed up with 6G. So there are multiple answers. First answer is that I guess that within 6G there will be legacy 5G equipments in place, as we already see today that 5G, as was mentioned also by Vaso, scoping a 5G scheme is not that easy, especially because it's not all 5G equipments, it's also supported by other technology from the past that are still deployed. So first, 6G can benefit from 5G certified solution. And second, if we establish, or when we will have established a 5G scheme, we can for sure benefit from all the properties that have been defined for these 5G schemes, such as, for example, how to assess what the conditions for the caps, how to select the proper standards, and so on, that will be beneficial as well for an update of the 5G scheme for 6G.
Yeah, and probably like it happens with 5G, 6G will not be a total revolution. I mean, it will inherit some of the, let's say, risk from 5G as well, and it will bring together some new risks and challenges as well.
Yeah, so the principles that are related to the construction of a 5G scheme will benefit, yeah, as well on the risk assessments and also on. On question number 3, who is the final owner of the schemes? So the EU schemes will be EU legislation. So the owner is the Commission. What about maintenance? So what we are thinking to establish is a governance of the scheme under ECCG. Sorry. So we want to create for the schemes a ECCG dedicated group that will take care of the scheme, meaning adopting the supporting documents and guidance that will be helpful for the implementation of the scheme. That ECCG subgroup will have to rely on the production of the relevant documentation, and we are thinking to establish there are several options, but one has been already studied, which is the establishment of an ENISA with the support of industry to take utmost benefit of the existing structure of the SOGAES existing scheme support groups such as JAS and GS and so on, ISKI as well. So the maintenance will be organized under ECCG with the support of industry and all stakeholders that are relevant for that. How can the ecosystem contribute actively to the development of schemes? That's as indicated by Renate on the process. When we create a scheme, so first there is a union rolling work program, so there are several stakeholders that are represented through the SCCG. When the scheme is created, there is a publication of a draft of the scheme, so there is a possibility to comment. But even before that, there is a call for an ad hoc working group. So the relevant ecosystem participant may also be involved for the creation of the scheme. And after, of course, there will be the adoption of the implementing act that will have also its own publication and mechanisms. One very last comment on that. The schemes we are creating are based on existing schemes, be them from the public sector or from the private sector. So the ecosystem is already contributing to the development of the schemes because they are already operating current schemes that we based on new EU schemes on.
Thank you very much, Philippe. I don't think I can. Can we advance one slide, please?
The other way around.
Okay.
No, the one before, there is another one before.
I will speak only 1 minute, okay?
Can you please do something? So one slide before that.
One back.
One back. Sorry. But,
yeah.
Oh? Now.
Stop. Don't touch anything.
So we had a lot about the cost, and we had a lot about trust. So
I would like to say that I am thankful for question 2. How will ENISA raise trust? My answer is it not will, it does it already. Okay. I think it's the first time that we have. I wrote here we have the ecosystem that just mentioned previously sitting together, bringing people together. There are a few hundred people around on certifications. This is the first time ever in Europe. We pool knowledge, okay? We bridge approaches which are there and deliver widely accepted proposals. Okay, I do not answer anything more. That's I can say, yeah, you-hoo.
Erica.
And close, yes, Orica. This, I wanted to, sorry, another small thing. I think that the price, these questions which are here, I think that if certification services are sold very many times, will be much more cheaper. It's just like, you know, new equipment that costs at the beginning a lot of money and then it decreases. So actually we need to disseminate this certification knowledge so that a lot of people can produce it and sell it more cheap. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luis. And I also, my takeaway is do not reinvent the wheel. So they stick to this simple wisdom. And also this clash of the two words, knowledge versus money. And that's a very important message, I guess. Yes? Trying to make my pizza engineering again? It doesn't work.
Only one page.
I know. There is a position somewhere, but I didn't. Maybe you can. Yeah.
Which is the upper or the lower?
The big one. The big one. Not there, not there.
Okay. One.
That was quick.
So please, go ahead.
Okay.
Back.
I couldn't read them so quickly. It's okay. No, the other one. I saw quickly one was about the quantum key distribution or something. Yeah. My AI tells me that.
One after, just another one, next one. Yeah,
No,
this one.
The other one. Stop.
Here.
Don't touch. Yeah. I saw quantum key distribution. What are plans for certification of quantum transport, in particular quantum key distribution? Okay. That's more scientific topic, but anyway. We should make it clear that quantum key distribution is sometimes it's erroneously considered like quantum cryptography. This is not quantum cryptography. It is about key distribution based on quantum mechanics. And it's only related to exchanging two big keys. That's it. From the certification viewpoint, I don't know what is expected, the testing, but I think the important issue there in that quantum-related field is it's quantum safe cryptography, the cryptography which is will withstand the quantum computing, which is already there. And in ETSI TC Cyber, Technical Committee Cyber, there is a subgroup which is working on quantum safe cryptography, which is quite heavily mathematics based, like lattice-based cryptography and so on, that can be studied, and this could be certified and tested. There is a testing method on that. But regarding key distribution, that's a very expensive technology, by the way. I saw this as a Horizon project, research project, and I saw the devices that can exchange key, but the reliability is not very large keys. So if you don't know, these are like two devices or based on quantum mechanics that they frequency or whatever, they behave the same. It's like mirror model of electrons. And they generate two big keys on both sides without exchanging any information between them. That's the quantum stuff. So after that, it goes to the classical cryptography. So it's not exchanging messages, but generating the keys only. So this is very expensive stuff. I remember one of the experts in cybersecurity, Bruce Schneier, saying this is, what is that, quantum key distribution is as expensive as it is useless. Okay, anyway, the other way, as useless as it is expensive, so it doesn't matter. It's very good from the research topic. I don't know about the certification, and will we need that? It's the same like the other cryptographic tools that we use. And the other one, future research areas related to AI and cybersecurity. Oof, that's a huge universe. Yeah, that's maybe what we touch around what is related to certification and trustworthy AI. The most challenging areas are around the explainability, transparency, reproducibility, and data interpretability. Those are the important areas. There was a very large DARPA-led project 3 years ago, XAI. That's how the field started, explainable AI. How from the black box machine learning you can do something that could explain the decisions with some level of confidence and so on. So this is an important, very important area, because that will bring really the aspects of trustworthiness, what could be also tested, audited, and so on. Thank you.
Yeah, on that I can complement that AI, both AI and quantum, are very important areas in Horizon Europe, Digital Europe. So it's a lot of investment going there, including building capacities for AI, but also, and what we are doing is we have a lot of work at ENISA around the intersection of AI with cybersecurity. So last year we have been working on both sides of the story, you know, this dual world, AI as a target and AI, you know, to improve cybersecurity as a tool. And this year we're going to dive in some more areas like AI for the cyber defense, SOCs, operation centers, also AI for the biotech. There is another area as well, relevant area. And also the cybersecurity implication of Web 3.0. We haven't heard much during today or yesterday about this, but that's an emerging area, and it will come with its own, very much like the 6G compared to 5G, it will come with its own challenges and you know, cybersecurity issues in addition to those that inherit from Web 2.0 world, because it started as a revolution, but it's a bit of evolution as well compared to Web 2.0. So on this, I think I gave my own take to this issue. Before closing the session, I would like, on behalf of ENISA, to thank you everybody, those at home and those here on site, and also to our panelists. And last but not the least, first of all, to the Commission, and also to Andreas and to Johan for giving, for guiding us to this journey, which is not easy. It is more like a marathon than a sprint. And also I would like to thank our colleagues. So the ENISA team working for the EU5G, starting with Cord Butters, is online, is not on site, but he's there in the cloud somewhere. Also to Jorgen Samuelsson, he's been yesterday and he's also working with us on EU5G, and it's been the Monsieur Loyal yesterday guiding us to do that journey. And also Renate, our legal officer, and Philippe, the chief of sector for the certification, and our project manager for the EU5G certification scheme, Luis Marinos for the market, our big wizard for the market. And I don't want to forget anybody. So, and last but not the least, the most important part of the team that has contributed to the success of these days, it's Chloe and Vicente over there. So I would a big. So thank you very much, everybody, for being here, and see you next time.